Many phones have tried to steal Samsung's crown over the past few years, and many have failed. LG, OnePlus, Nextbit Robin, all gone. If you come for the king, you best not miss. Motorola, however, just made a Samsung S26 Ultra competitor with an internal stylus at a fraction of the cost, $500 versus $1,100. And today we're going to see how the Moto Stylus holds up against the king. Right off the bat, you can see that the Motorola stylus is very similar to what we found inside of Samsung's Ultra phone. It's an active stylus with an internal battery. However, Samsung's stylus, as we learned on this latest model, no longer contains any internal charging. The Motorola stylus will not fit inside of the Samsung, too girthy. The Samsung stylus will fit inside of the Motorola, but it will not stay inside. It slips out. Both pins are about the same length. It's interesting that the Motorola stylus has two metal contacts near the tip. I assume these are for charging, which means there is a physical plug inside this IP69 watertight slot where the stylus can charge up. Hopefully we get to see that from the inside of the phone here in a few seconds. The stylus can do a few things. It can act as a magnifier for the screen, kinda nifty. It uses a built-in magnet so the digitizer grid under the glass knows where the S Pen is hovering. It can also convert writing to text, just like Samsung, and it can even complete your hand-drawn mathematical equations. However, it looks like the computer brain missed one of the ones at the beginning of my number, which means that the answer is wrong. There's probably a lesson in there somewhere about letting AI do your thinking for you, but I'll have to ask chat what that lesson is. Since the Samsung S Pen uses a non-active copper coil to interact with the underscreen digitizer, the Samsung Pen does not work with Motorola's phone, and the Motorola stylus, since it uses a magnet, does not work on the Samsung screen. Different technologies. The pressure-sensitive tip is replaceable, but if we want to see the internal magnet, we need to go a little deeper. Surprisingly, the pen housing is made from metal, making it quite a bit more durable than Samsung's S Pen. I'll give Motorola a point for this one. With the pin broken in half, we can see that the lower portion contains the circuitry and the pin tip, while the back half contains the rather large battery. Apparently, 1 minute of charging inside the phone gives you about 1 to 2 hours of stylus battery life. The battery, as you can tell, is very durably housed in the upper half of the stylus, as you can see from the coils of electrodes wound up tight inside of the metal exterior housing. Don't try this at home. Shorted batteries have a very distinctive smell of burnt Skittles. Making our way back to the phone, we can take a look at the screen. The Motorola stylus is using a 6.7-inch screen, while Samsung uses a 6.9-inch. 1 point for Samsung. Samsung also has 500 pixels per inch, where Motorola has 444. And Motorola doesn't have the anti-glare coating nor the privacy mode. However, both screens scratch at a level 6, with deeper grooves at a level 7. Nobody gets a point. There is a front-facing 32-megapixel hole-punch camera under the glass, with a very thin earpiece slit between the glass and the... the frame is plastic, with plastic removable buttons. Personally, I don't care if my phone is plastic or metal, since I always have my phone in a case. But I imagine having plastic on every side is one of the way Motorola sells this phone for half the price of Samsung. Plastic or metal doesn't matter, so they both get a point. However, take a look at this SIM card tray, a blast from the past. We get the freedom to expand our storage with an SD card slot up to 1 terabyte. Amazing. 5 points to Motorola. And what is this, a headphone jack? 5 more points to Motorola. I feel like Dumbledore up in here. The headphone jack sits right next to the 68-watt turbo power USB-C port, which is faster than Samsung's 60 watts. Another point to Motorola. Making our way to the camera plateau, it is quite a bit less pronounced than Samsung's camera rings. We have our single color LED flash, our 50-megapixel main camera, and our 13-megapixel wide angle. There's no telephoto, and I have no idea what this other lens is for on the bottom right, since Motorola only lists 2 cameras on their website, not 3. We'll have to dig a bit deeper for that answer here in a second, but Samsung does get 2 extra points since they have an extra 2 telephoto camera perspectives on their phone. And you might be like, hey Jerry, where does the name Motorola even come from? And you might be surprised that back in the 1930s, Motorola's whole shtick was putting radios into cars, hence the name Motor-Ola. Ola was a popular suffix back in the day signifying sound, like the Radiola home radio, or the Gryffindor phonograph. Motorola just stuck, even though they don't make car radios anymore. The back panel is made from a very rubbery silicon polymer type material, which in my opinion is far better than glass, which is bound to shatter at some point. Another point to Motorola. The 6.7-inch screen on the Motorola is 120 Hz, just like the Samsung. It is 5000 nits, which is better than Samsung's, and has a 10-bit 1 billion color display, which is better than Samsung's 8-bit 16 million colors. And after about 20 seconds from the heat of my lighter, we do see a light blemish, but it mostly disappears after the AMOLED screen cools back down. I'll go ahead and put back in the power button as we prepare for the bin test. Samsungs have never wavered in their structural rigidity, so let's see if this Motorola can hang. With a bin from the back, we get a minor flex near the top end, right below that camera plateau, but no cracks or permanent kinks. When bin from the front, we get the same amount of minimal flex, but the Motorola stylus is still surprisingly strong even without the stylus helping out from the inside. At $500 so far, the Motorola is holding its own against Samsung. But let's pop it open and see what's really under the hood. Price is a huge factor when picking out a phone though, and that $600 you might save by not buying a depreciating flagship could afford you round-trip tickets to somewhere cool like Hawaii, or imagine yourself on a cruise to see the rest of the world. Let me turn off this phone real quick while I tell you how to stay connected with affordable data while traveling with today's sponsor, Saley. See, when you travel, Saley uses the already existing eSIM card slot in your phone for heavily discounted data rates to more than 200 global destinations. There's no more dealing with scammers or dead SIM cards at the airport, or waiting in lines at strange places to activate a new SIM card. Everything happens automatically within seconds right in the Saley mobile app. You can add a global prepaid eSIM card at any time for just a few bucks. Or for just $1 a month, you can even use a secondary throwaway eSIM number for like marketplace deals, deliveries, or to just keep your main number private. Whether you're headed to Argentina or England or nomading yourself around the globe like the adventurer you are, there's an ultra plan that gives you access to 121 destinations all at once. Saley has also included an ad blocker so your precious data doesn't get wasted on ads, except for, this ad, since this ad is what's going to save you money the next time you travel. Get an exclusive 15% discount on Saley data plans. Just use the code JerryRig at checkout. You can download the Saley app with the QR code on screen or go to saley.com/jerryrig. Memories are more valuable than material objects, so go somewhere memorable with the money you might save. If you're going to take pictures while you're out globetrotting though, keep in mind that Motorola's third camera lens is entirely for decoration, just aesthetically covering the light sensor. It's smart of them to make it look like a camera, but in reality it just helps optimize the exposure and color balance of the two real cameras. What's super cool though is that Motorola used a transparent, almost atomic purple colored plastic to seal up the inside of the stylus housing, like the Game Boy Color back in the day. Since both the stylus and the phone are IP69 water resistant, they individually have to be sealed from each other. Thumbs up for that. Let me know down in the comments if you think Motorola should make a whole phone out of this transparent plastic. The lower stereo loudspeaker comes out next. It does not have any balls inside. It does, however, have a white water damage indicator sticker on the inside of the housing, right near the charging port. This guy turns from white to pink if it ever gets wet. Up at the top of the motherboard, I'll unplug the ribbon cables just like little Legos, along with the front-facing 32-megapixel selfie camera, which does not have OIS. The bottom board comes out next. This has our underscreen optical fingerprint sensing camera, and a USB-C 2.0 port that can charge at those 68 watts. The headphone jack comes out after that. We already awarded points for this one. And then we can see the waterproofing mesh over the loudspeaker opening. There's only one screw still holding on the motherboard, along with the SIM and SD card tray, which I totally should have removed before lifting the motherboard out. You live and learn. I really like how the black motherboard looks though. We don't see gothic phones here very often. The 50-megapixel main camera does have optical image stabilization, while the 13-megapixel camera does not. The processor, though, is a Snapdragon 6 Gen 3, which came out in 2024. So while it is indeed a new phone and a newly constructed chip, the technology and the processing power is from 2 years ago, which helps explain the $600 price difference between this and Samsung's newest Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, sitting inside of their flagship. Which I guess means that Samsung does get 5 points for the processor. But is it worth a trip to Hawaii just to have the latest processing power? Not always. I'll peel off the slightly tinted plastic housing for the stylus, still super cool looking. You can see where the gold contact pads that rest on the motherboard convert to the 2 wired leads that charge up the S-Pen battery when it's docked inside of the phone, using physical contacts instead of a small wireless pad like Samsung used to, all still while being watertight. Make sure you're subscribed if you like seeing cool tech from the inside. The one bummer though is that even though Motorola has a slightly larger battery, they've glued it in place, all 5,100 milliamp hours. So I'm gonna dock Motorola 3 points for that, which, assuming the phone is still alive and I don't have to dock any more points for it being dead, puts our budget $500 Motorola stylus 1 point ahead of Samsung's much more expensive S26 Ultra. Nice work, Motorola. Plan your next trip with Saley at the link in the description, and thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.